Today's guest is Ashley Cain, a former professional footballer and reality TV star who has undergone an incredibly personal and transformative journey following the tragic loss of his daughter Azaylia to leukemia at just 8 months old. Ashley has dedicated his life to raising awareness around childhood cancer and men's mental health. His resilience has inspired many, and through his work with the Azaylia Foundation, Ashley continues to help others to find hope and healing in the darkest of times. In this conversation, we dive into the sudden and unexpected end to Ashley's football career.
You go from playing in the FA Cup against Chelsea to absolute nobody. No income, no insurance, no club, house, cars, payments, things going out.
And we discuss Ashley's deeply personal experience with grief following the tragic loss of his daughter, Azaylia.
I knew that if they told me to sit down, it was something that was bad. And then they walked in the room, told me to sit down.
We also touch on his mental health journey as a man in the public eye.
There's a huge attack on masculinity and men being able to be men, because I think men being in that masculine energy is scrutinized, demonized. That has a massive impact.
And we even get into Ashley's current relationship status.
My love language is acts of service, yeah. I don't want people to buy me anything. I don't want anyone to do something big, you know.
Does that mean that Ashley Cain is single? But before we get into it, I want to ask you for a favor. We want to make sure these impactful conversations get to as many people as possible. By subscribing to this channel, you help these conversations reach the people they need to. In return, if you're part of the first 20,000 subscribers, we're going to pick 10 of you to come down here to the We Need to Talk studio to meet me, the guests, and let us know who you'd like to see on the show. In this conversation, we'll touch on Ashley's journey and, tragically, the death of his daughter, a topic that some listeners may find distressing. Okay, let's get into the conversation. How are you doing right now, man?
How am I doing?
Yeah.
I'm doing good. I thought maybe I'd be able to reminisce a little bit more in the achievement that I've just done. But, for me, I'm kind of onto the next thing already. I feel like with my life at the minute, it's always quite similar. I think I always have an overhanging and overarching feel of pain, of trauma, of sadness, but also this inner fire burning and drive, to overcome it. I don't believe there's anything as feeling categorically bad.
Okay.
I don't think there's anything that you can say is feeling categorically good. I just try and keep things in the middle and staying focused on what I'm doing and the reason why I need to do it.
Okay.
So as we sit here today, I'm good.
Okay, you're good. All right, you're good. Can I say it's good to see you smile?
Yeah.
It's good to see you smile, man.
I smile a lot.
Yeah.
I smile a lot. Despite what people may believe, I do smile a lot.
yeah, and laugh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good. Can we go back to you growing up? One of the areas that I haven't heard you talk much about, that I love to hear about, is the relationship that you had with your parents. Because our parents shape us for
100%.
good, bad, indifferent. What was the relationship like with your parents growing up?
I think, looking back and reflecting on it, my relationship with my parents is great. I don't even have to think about it to say that my mom is great and my dad's great. I think if I was to describe my mom, I'd say she's probably the most loving, caring and nurturing person you will ever meet. My mom will always be there by my side. She will always be in my corner and she will always be an Ashley Cain fan, no matter how bad I've been. I'm always a good boy in my mom's eyes. With my dad's a very strong man, a very hard man. No bullshit.
Yeah.
Whereas I had a lot of love and care and nurturing from my mom, I didn't really receive that from my dad. I always believed that my dad loved me, but I would never hear the words, I love you. I would never have a hug, or I would never have that embrace of love. It was more, I looked up to my dad. I respected my dad. And I seen him as a figure of somebody I needed to impress, However, he always looked after his kids. He always provided. And if he was needed, he was always there.
What about brothers, sisters, cousins? Did you grow up with a tight family unit?
Yeah, so my family's big. I've got a big family.
All right, how big?
I've got 2 older brothers. I've got 2 younger sisters. You know, I've got a whole heap of cousins. I think what was, quite good is, obviously I'm mixed race. My dad's side is the black side from the Caribbean. My mom's side is the white side from England. And I think those 2 traits that I explained in my mom and dad are similar to the families as well. The black side of my family was the life, was the energy, was the vibes, was the competitiveness. Okay. You know what I mean? Was the side where you had to go to show up. You knew it was going to be a good time wherever you went, but you had to show up and bring your A game. My mom's side of the family was the side that, you got your cards, you got your presents, you got your hugs, you got your kisses, you got your love. Do you know what I'm trying to say? And I think that was great as well. So that extended within my mom and dad.
But now you being mixed race, and can I say this is also what blows my mind. I think a lot of Black Americans, it blows our mind, because in the U.S., if you were in the U.S., you would not be considered quote unquote mixed race. You'd be Black.
What's really strange is, people would ask me, like, what do I identify as the most, yeah? And you know what? Now thinking about it, I would say, my life, I probably identified as being Black the most. And then I wondered why. I thought, was it an attraction, or was something drawing me to, wanting to be that side? And I think it was probably the hostility from the other side that made that stand out to me more than where I was drew to the most. In terms of, if I went to school, I was the Black kid. I wasn't the mixed race kid, I was the Black kid. Because I don't think a lot of people in my area knew what being mixed race was. They didn't see it. So I was the Black kid. And if I was to suffer any racism, we all know what the words are that people use these days.
I think a similarity that we have is we were both the only ones in our areas.
Yeah.
Right? I remember moving from basically like an all-Black Queens in New York to an all-white Long Island. And we were the only Black family.
Yeah.
And I know what that pressure felt like. That was the 80s. And when I reflect back, I think differently about what was happening versus when I was in that environment.
Yeah.
So when you reflect back in terms of what was happening to you as a child, do you look at that and say, okay, that was bullying, that was a toxic environment, or do you look at it differently? From the adult lens, reflecting back.
Can I ask you a question before I answer yours?
Sure.
Do you wish it was any different?
No. Yeah, no.
And a lot of us have problems. You're going to find it hard to walk down the street and find anybody that isn't going through a form of stress or a form of depression or a form of trauma at some point in their life, Mm-hmm. And I believe, a lot of our problems are how we choose to see things, hence why I was on the challenge. And I was saying the only difference between an adventure and an ordeal is attitude. Because if I seen the task I had to do that day as an ordeal, it became an ordeal. If I seen it as an adventure, wow, it was brilliant. So when I look back to the situation I was at in school, like, was it bullying? Like, yeah. Was it right? No. But I believe that environment molded, sculpted, forged a kind of person that was able to deal with the life that I've had to deal with now. And I believe because I'm a person that was never a victim, it was hard for me to say that was bullying. Mm. It was hard. It's hard for me to say that experience was detrimental, because every tough situation I seem to go through, I seem to grow from. Because I've always had to sometimes I think, work twice as hard as the person next to me to get the same opportunities. Whether that's because of the skin, whether that's because of the tattoos, whether that's because I'm quite a confident and brash person, or whether people don't like me, I don't know. I've always had to work twice as hard. So it could never matter to me what the problem was. It mattered how I got to the other side of it. So that's why I don't really see problems as problems anymore. I don't see no's as no's. I see them as, next opportunity. I see them as things to overcome to get to the side and get to where I want to be or what I need to achieve.
You must have had these beliefs early because, you went on to really be a very talented athlete. So you were in football early.
Yeah.
And you outperformed early
Yeah.
in football. This is the one part of your life that I don't hear much about, that I'd love to hear much more, is you're forced out of football from an injury,
Yeah.
right? I would imagine you're forced out of football, you have injury, you don't have a lot of money at this point. Okay. So, and you haven't gone to school, you haven't built a skill, but you probably feel stuck. What was Ashley like during that time?
It's really crazy. You go from playing in the FA Cup against Chelsea and getting Michael Essien's shirt and then like leaving the football match, going down to town where everyone's got their Saturday jobs in the local shop saying, look what I've done, being like 18 years old. It was insane. To the point where, you have your fifth operation, you know that you're never ever going to make a comeback to the professional game. No income, no insurance, no club, house, cars, payments, things going out. I went from being somebody all of my life to absolute nobody. To literally, like, as we sit now on the sofa, like, looking down my sofa to find change to put in my Mercedes-Benz to get from A to B. That's where it got to.
How did you feel, to go back to emotions, right? How did you feel in that moment? Because I think, especially as men, status, the achievement of status is critically important. And here you are, someone who's considered high status, and all of a sudden that status is dropping. And you know it, but not everyone else around you knows it. How do you feel in that moment?
You can say you feel scared because you don't know where your future lies. Feel insignificant. Kind of feel worthless to everybody around you because don't forget all the relationships that you built aside from family. You built, you being the person that you were, and then you're not that person anymore. And also, like, very low self-confidence, very low self-worth, depressed, anxious at where the next step's going to be.
All right, look, success isn't about avoiding obstacles, but learning to turn them into opportunities. Some people are blockers. They see challenges like bias or setbacks as roadblocks that stop them in their tracks. But others, like Ashley, are builders and see those same challenges as stepping stones. To become a builder, you have to shift your mindset. When you face a no, take it as a redirection, not an ending. For example, let's say you're overlooked for a promotion. Don't let it discourage you and stop your pursuit. Instead, build upon it. Use it as motivation to sharpen your skills and prove your value. Embrace the hard work and see challenges as a chance to grow stronger. The more you face difficulties head on, the better equipped you are for the future. Remember, it's not about the obstacle itself. It's about how you rise above it. Be a builder and let each challenge propel you towards success. Let's get into your princess, because she changed your world.
Everything.
Talk to me about first day she's born, because I go back, I think about the first, you never forget that. Tell me about the first day with Azaylia.
You know what, yeah? I'm gonna say something. Do you not think it's a confusing time? The reason is, me being honest, I had someone there, yeah, and I thought, I love you, but I don't know why I love you.
Yeah.
Because all love is built on a duration of time and bonding and relationships with a person, right?
Yes.
So I'm looking at this little person now and I'm like, I love you.
Yes.
I don't know why I love you.
But I do.
But I do.
Unconditionally.
Unconditionally.
Yes.
I'm a parent. I don't really know what I'm doing, but I'm going to find out.
Yes.
So my first moments were a lot of confusion of like feeling all these feelings and not really knowing how to explain them or what to do with them, just actually doing it. And then day by day, just getting to love my role even more. I just really liked that I could have somebody that enabled me to be who I wanted to be, who I was meant to be. All my life, I've had to put on a face or a facade or an act to survive. When she was here, I didn't think of anything else, any other problem in the whole world. Because that is an issue of mine. My head is 1,000 miles an hour. When I had that little girl in my arms, nothing else mattered.
When did you first find out that she was sick?
So she became very, stuffy and blocked up, so her breathing was hampered. So, we initially just us thought it might be a cold, called the GP. The GP said the same thing. Then her belly became firm and hard. So we called the GP again. They said, it's probably constipation or colic. So gave Azaylia the medication for colic, wasn't changing anything. And then one day, a partner seen a raised lump on her stomach, and it was like, it had a bruise on it. When we rang then, they told us to come straight in. And then they took Azaylia's bloods. As they were, checking her bloods, I just stayed standing up. I can't even remember how long it was for the bloods to come back, but I never ever sat down in that time because I wanted to be stood up ready for when they came back in the room. I knew that if they told me to sit down, it was something that was bad. And then they walked in the room, told me to sit down, and I started shutting down from then, really. And then they told us it was AML leukemia. It was very aggressive. When even an adult would usually, have cancer, they would have a white cell count of 50. Azaylia's is 200 at 2 months old. She's at high risk of this illness taking her life, and she's at low risk of them being able to cure it. They told us that on the spot there. And then from that moment, we were moved to Birmingham Children's Hospital. Didn't even go home. Birmingham Children's Hospital, straight to, intensive care. And then that was my life going forward. I went from like the first time in my life feeling like I had everything I'd ever wanted and finally things are right, to having my entire life tipped upside down. And at that point, if you ask me, how was I then when I got told, I broke down. I couldn't actually function. I struggled to stand. I struggled to speak. It took me like a 24-hour period for my survival mechanism to kick in. I just kept repeating questions in my head. I thought, if my daughter can't talk to me, she can't tell me how she feels. She can't tell me what she's going through or what she wants. Ash, if you were lying on the bed with cancer, what kind of person would you want and need around you? Who would you need that person to be? What would you need them to do? How would you want them to act? And the more I asked myself the questions, and the more I gave myself the answers, after the 24 hours was exactly who I knew I needed to be. And when I stepped over that line, she would never see me cry, because even though she was too young to understand what crying was, babies are sensory, and I know that they can pick up on energy and emotion, so she would never get to see me cry. She would never see me sad. What she would do is see her daddy happy, positive, and always with good energy and good spirits. And that's how I kept the structure of that room. I told Saf the same thing. I said, when we walk over this line, this is Club 100. The thing that breaks my heart more than anything? I never ever think that I'm hard done to, yeah? because I wasn't the one with the cancer. I never look at that situation and say, why me? I always think, why her? Because the thing that breaks my heart is, bro, the thing that it haunts me every single day is I tried to be great for my daughter. In the end, she was the one that was great for me, because I used to be in a room and I used to look at this girl that was smiling no matter what she was going through, not understanding that she's got an illness that day by day is taking away her life. And she's there, bro, smiling at me. She's there smiling, thinking everything's fine, everything's great. And I'm having to try and look at her and smile back. And it's just tearing me apart. You know what I mean? It's absolutely tearing me apart. And there's nothing that I could do about it. Nothing. I used to pray for me to have it and not her. I used to pray to switch places. I used to beg to switch places. And I couldn't. I used to put my hands on her and try and take it out, put some of my goodness in and take some of her badness out, but I couldn't. When she used to scream, I used to try and take her pain away, but I couldn't. That does something to a human being. And you ain't got nobody by your side during that time. Nobody that can put their arm around you and tell you that it's going to be okay. So you have to be a certain kind of person in those situations. And not only be a kind of person that can deal with it, but be the best you that you can be. But I tell you something now, by making that decision very early on to make sure that that room was positive, it was magical, and it was great, even through the pain and the trauma of it, and even though it being the darkest moment of my life, it's the best time of my life I've had and I ever will have going forward. It was the most magical journey through all that pain, because I decided that that's how it was going to be. When I look back at that, do I look back at that journey as like, I wish that never happened? Bro, if I could go back tomorrow and do it again, I'll go back tomorrow and do it again. If I could spend 6 months with her again, I'd do it like that. If I could just give her one kiss, or I could just hold her like that for 1 second and that was it, I'd trade my life just instantly now. Not even if it was going to bring her back with me. If I could just hold her for, 5 seconds, 10 seconds and feel that feeling to be with her again, I'd have done it a heartbeat. It's mad.
Yeah. I tell you, I am.
Sorry, because I drifted on there.
No. It's one of those where, as a parent, this is the last thing on earth that you want. The last thing. And I can't even imagine how you summon the strength to show up with the smile as she's smiling back at you. And then there was a moment that I've heard you talk about where the hospital tells you, no, there's nothing else we could do. And that's where you push back and say, no, there's something else that you can do. And this is where the possibility of her going to Singapore comes about. What happened during that moment?
With Azaylia's treatment, they thought she wasn't going to be strong enough to make it through the first round of chemotherapy, and she did. She went through with flying colors, really strong. The chemotherapy, she was in a great state. She was strong. Every time they said, they didn't think she was going to make it out of intensive care. Every time they said she couldn't, she did. So we've done this battle, this 4-month battle, and we've done it. She's done it. We're at home. And then we had to go in, basically, to ring the bell. Like, Azaylia's done. We can go back to a normal life, being a normal family, everything being perfect. And then we make the hospital visit to ring the bell. Azaylia was a bit of a celebrity in the hospital, way more of a celebrity than I ever was. You know what I mean? Around the world at this point, we was getting messages off The Rock, NBA players, everything. She was absolutely a little star, magic. Everybody that she came across seemed to love her. So we go in and all of the nurses are lying in the corridor. Everybody's out from the wards, you know, to clap Azaylia. She rings a bell. We walk into the room, and the consultant walks in and looks like she wants to cry. And I was thinking, like, you know, I was thinking she had a really tough conversation with somebody else. She said, Azaylia's relapsed. It's come back with a vengeance, and we don't think there's anything we can do. You got to take her home. That didn't seem right. I said that there must be something else we can do. First and foremost, what I said was, she's still ringing the bell. She got to this point, and up to this point, she deserves to ring the bell. So I let her ring the bell. Secondly, after we rang that bell, I just kind of said that, you know, I'm a very nice person. I'm a very nice guy. This is my daughter we're talking about. I'm fierce, I'm ferocious, and I refuse to leave here without you guys putting another option in front of us. I can't accept the fact that we're just going to take her home now. It's not fair. It's not right. And if it was me, I'd want someone to give me a chance. And that's what she needs to have, a chance. So then, you know, we found a consultant in Singapore that was, you know, comfortable doing another stem cell transplant, but it was a haplo transplant, so it'd be from a parent. So basically, we were getting ready to move to Singapore. We found the consultant, we had the cost, we found the hospital, had all the plans. They told us, you know, in order to go to Singapore, only one parent was allowed to go. Imagine COVID. So what we had to do was, you know, we said that Saf would fly over because we knew that they'd want me to do the stem cell transplant, so they'd have to fly me over.
Okay.
So that was the tactic.
I see, that was smooth.
Yeah,
that was smooth. I like that.
That was a tactic. And then, you know, it was a case of money.
Mm.
We'd done this GoFundMe campaign, and it was the fastest GoFundMe campaign ever, I think, to £1 million. Literally, the day of the consultant comes into the room and said, Azaylia's tumours have come back. She has now got tumours in her lungs, on her spleen, in her stomach, in her kidneys, and in her brain. And she won't be able to fly. And this time, there is absolutely nothing we can do about it. The pressure of Azaylia being that high in the plane would have caused havoc with the tumours. The radiotherapy was too harsh. It would have killed her. So at this point, you know, they were like, there is absolutely nothing we can do anymore. We've explored everything. And I'm going to tell you something about hope, yeah? Hope's weird, you know. I used to hope that my daughter could beat cancer. I hope that we can have a couple more months or a couple more weeks. And then I got to the point, mate, where my hope become the fact that I hope that when she passes away, it's peaceful and she can be in our arms. And then, we made sure, one thing that we pushed back on is we pushed back to keep going to the hospital to get transfusions. So we kept getting transfusions to hold that together so that she would pass away peacefully. And then one morning, we just knew that that was the time, and we made sure that she was lying in our arms, and I just counted the seconds between her breaths until the point that she didn't breathe anymore. And I can't forget that moment. That moment will never ever leave me. I used, you know, like, and I have to. It's like holding a little girl in your arms that for the first time began to look so poorly, man. That hurt me. It hurt me because when she went home for the final time, she started to look poorly. That hurt me. And I'm looking at her. And I'm counting between her breaths. And when she didn't breathe again, you know, I feel so guilty that the biggest journey that my daughter ever had to make, I was on the other side to greet her. And I can never not feel guilty about that. No matter how much somebody wants to tell me that I shouldn't feel guilty, I'll never ever be able to not feel guilty about that. I even got to the point, Paul, where I thought it'd be okay for me to keep her at home.
After she passed?
Yeah, I thought, you know, it's okay. I'll just keep her here and still look after her and still... I thought that was an okay thing to think. I thought it's okay. We don't have to take her to funeral directors. We can keep her here and look after her and still hold her and still, you know, love her and take care of her.
At this point in the conversation, Ashley needed to take a break. What he just shared with us is something I hope no one listening to has to go through. If you have, my heart goes out to you, and I encourage you to reach out for professional support. Now, I've reflected on this part of our discussion many times, and I'm struck by how incredibly brave Ashley is to speak so openly about the passing of Azaylia in an effort to help others who might be going through tough times. Traumatic experiences can fundamentally alter our brains, particularly in the areas related to stress response, emotional regulation, and memory. When trauma isn't processed or addressed, it can have significant and long-lasting effects on our mental, emotional, and physical health. Unaddressed trauma often manifests in a range of negative outcomes, such as anxiety, depression, substance abuse, and difficulties in forming or maintaining long-lasting relationships. Now, Ashley is clearly someone who has worked through a lot of his trauma. So I asked him what steps he has taken to reach the place he's at today.
I mean, there's two ways, you know, you can look at steps. You can look at, you know, it, like mentally, or you can look at like a routine that you would, you know, apply kind of around your day.
Okay.
I think for all forms of my trauma that I've had, whether it was, you know, loss, or whether it was, you know, racism, or whether it was, you know, bad things in my career, I think the important thing first and foremost is you have to face it. You can't run away from it. And when I say face it, I don't mean like pick your fists up and like run into it and run out screaming. I mean, you have to really come to terms with what's happened. And you have to be honest. You know, the main way I think that I managed to overcome certain issues with Azaylia is because not only did I have to be brutally and truthfully honest with myself, I chose to be brutally and truthfully honest with my family and everyone around me, because that becomes very humbling. And when you're humbled, you are truly at the base of how you can feel, but only at the base of how you can feel will you really know the true steps to build yourself back up into the person that you need to be. So I guess it was facing the situation and being completely honest with how I felt.
Okay.
That was key. And I always say this, when I have something, it's not about moving on from it. Maybe you move on with it. And I think that's a very key component to this thing. I think a lot of people think that whatever they've had to face is something that they need to move on from and put in the back, and they will never have to deal with it again. My trauma is ongoing, you know, and for me, I don't believe my trauma is ever going to leave me. And I wouldn't want it to leave me, because the pain that I feel is just the love that I have for my daughter. And I never, ever want that to leave. So I have to move on with my trauma and find coping mechanisms around it. Like I always say, like trauma and loss, the circle will never get smaller. We just get stronger around it. We grow out from our trauma. We grow out from our grief. We grow out from our pain. The pain doesn't disappear and get smaller and shrink. And I think it's understanding these little key things. I would also say one thing that really helped me is the more we make excuses for things, forever longer are we going to be in the same place. I think, if something bad happens or you feel a certain way or something happened to you which you didn't like or feel like you didn't deserve, it's kind of irrelevant in the grand scheme of you moving forward. Because we can talk about that's why you feel how you feel. We can blame that for why you've done what you've done. But at the end of the day, in this current situation right now, you still feel how you feel and you've still done what you've done. So if you want to move forward, you need to understand that, you need to accept it, and you need to move on from it or with it. And I think it's like very difficult for a lot of people to, accept and take responsibility for their actions. Yeah. The reason why I told my family who I was in that time, because like I'd spent a lot of time, bro, writing this eulogy, In that eulogy, not only was I talking about her, but I was talking about who I wanted to be, yeah. So it took a lot, and I spoke it. And then after that day when I spoke it, I thought like I knew who I wanted to be and what I wanted to do. Yeah. And I was just drinking. And I was drinking, and I wasn't being that person, and I wasn't doing what I thought, I needed to do. Yeah. I woke up one morning and, I felt really embarrassed and ashamed that, I keep talking about, I believe my daughter's in heaven. I believe that she's watching down on me, and this is what she's seeing. This is how she's seeing her daddy. Yeah. This is what impact she is seeing that she had on my life. I thought, nah, never again. And by thinking about what she can see was a true reflection of what I can see. Because guess what? I could sit here in front of you today and I could tell you anything about me and you would just have to believe it because you don't know any different. Right. But I couldn't lie to her anymore because she can always see me. And I also couldn't lie to myself. And I thought, if I can't lie to her and I can't lie to myself, do you know what? I ain't going to lie to no one else around me. I'm going to tell everyone else around me. Because in order for me to know how many bricks I need to lay down to build this house, I need to see the empty plan first. Right. You know what I mean? So I told everyone, and I was open and I was honest about not only how I felt, but about what I was doing.
You were opening up the demons, basically.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay.
And then, you know what? Because when I'd done that, yeah, I felt pretty embarrassed. Yeah. I felt pretty ashamed. I felt like a loser, yeah. But then it was great. You know what? It was great because I thought, I really, really want the people around me to love me and respect me. I really not only want them to feel comfortable with me being on this earth, yeah, and not doing anything stupid, but I want them to feel comfortable enough and secure enough in me that if they've got problems, they can come to me. Always remember that you have people in this world that love you, that care about you, that enjoy you, and that need you. That will always be the case. That will never change, no matter how shit you feel about yourself. That is one thing you always need to know and believe. Another thing is that, every single person that you walk past, on this day is probably going to be in a moment of darkness at some point. Unfortunately, you're not unique in how you feel. But, we always have the strength to see the next day. And tomorrow will always be a new day. We don't need to feel 100% today. Even if we feel 1%, it's enough to get us through.
So one thing that you mentioned there is that we're all going through something.
Yeah.
So for many of us that are dealing with trauma, there are other people in our family, other friends in our circle who may not be aware that that person is suffering from trauma, especially a man who may not emote.
Yeah.
What should they be doing? What should they be looking for with regard to the men in their lives and checking to see if they're dealing with trauma and how to support them?
Do you know what helped me? Just someone always being there, not having an answer, but having an ear. Not judging, but listening and being accepting. I think for me, it was more important for me to know that I have great people to offload to rather than seek advice from. I think that was it. I think for me, it was like a pressure build-up. It was a massive pressure build-up, and not everything that I had that was pressure I was proud about. You know, a lot of things I was embarrassed about, a lot of things I felt shameful about. But I think it's important in those situations not to feel judged. You know, there could have been a lot of things that I said that completely made people around me like, what? But they didn't. They let me release all the demons that I needed to release without judgment, without answers, just with ears and open hearts. And that was great for me, because I feel like by them listening, they absorbed a lot of it. For me to realize that, you know, that wasn't that bad saying that. That wasn't actually that bad. It wasn't that bad to say it, but it felt twice as good releasing it. And I think that's the important thing. But you know this, it's very difficult for men to be able to say things and not get judged.
Yes.
And I think people will be surprised how understanding others are and how accommodating are of how you feel.
Yes.
And do you know what it is? What I've noticed is I'm on the train today. The guy that I signed the book for on the train.
Yeah. Yeah, because there was two. You're supposed to bring two of these.
Yeah, the guy that done the tickets on the train asked me for my ticket, and he goes, "Do you mind if I sit down and talk to you?" He sat down in front of me and he told me his whole story about his child being ill, about the situation he went through with his partner, about the effects that it had for 55 minutes, my whole train journey. And then after, he said, thank you. Can I give you a hug? And one thing I've noticed is because I'm so well known and because I've been so vocal with my situation, people know I've been in pain. People know that I feel how I feel. So then when they see me, they know that I have the capacity to be able to, you know, relate to them.
Yes.
But there's so many people out there that can relate to you in your situation.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? I felt like I'm a bit of a buffer now for people because they know they can have that conversation with me. And it's really strange. I've seen so many more men open up to me because they know that I've opened up, you know, publicly.
And do you feel like a lot of those men don't feel like they have people in their lives they could open up to, so they come to you?
I mean, potentially, yeah.
So how do we change this? In particular, how do we change this with men? Because you look at the suicide rates, you look at the mental health epidemic that we're in with men, especially young men, and then you see, okay, you are someone who so many men look up to, and they feel like you are a source, but they all can't have access to you.
Can I ask you a question? It's very interesting now, and I feel like it's great being in your presence now. Do you think, you know, men talking has got better, you know, say from like 20 years ago?
Absolutely.
What is the suicide rate now?
So we have right now in the UK, 75% of suicides are men.
I mean, numbers wise, is it still going up?
Numbers, yeah, in the UK are going up.
So my question to you is, right, and this is always an interesting thing because a lot of people ask me, I'm a person that has to look at if more people are talking now,
right,
and there is more support for men and people, why is the suicide rate going up?
Right. So this is a great question.
I'm curious.
So this is also, I think, what we have to look at is there's a massive difference between the number of suicides among in the West versus the East. So the percentage of men committing suicide is roughly the same around the world. It's between 70 and 80%.
Yeah.
However, if you look at a place like the UK, roughly 11,000 men committed suicide last year. The same population, slightly larger, is Egypt. You know how many men committed suicide last year in Egypt? About 1,500. So you think, here is Egypt, actually a larger population than the UK. Why does it have drastically lower male suicides? Why would you guess?
I think it's because there's a huge attack on masculinity.
Okay.
And men being able to be men, because I think men being in their masculine energy is scrutinized. I think it's demonized. And I think that has a massive impact. Like, I've tried very hard to be in my masculine energy while being able to show how I feel, you know, and I will always fight for that. but I know how that is seen these days. And I think there's a massive fight at the minute, and I don't understand what the fight is really about.
With the fight. So I think this is such a brilliant conversation because I'm with you.
Am I far off it?
No. There's a massive battle happening right now. And I do think that it is around this idea of what is masculinity today. Because in our grandfather's day, there was no debate around what masculinity was. But today the question is okay, well, what is it? Because for some people, they'll say, okay, masculinity is about protect, provide, ultra assertive, strong, and any word you can think of around tough.
But I think that I think that is in there. I think I try to be all of those things. I think you have to earn that.
Okay.
You know, and you have to do those things if that's what you want to do.
Okay.
But I wouldn't say that anything there is wrong.
All right. So you have that. But then you have other definitions that say, okay, well, masculinity is more so it's about respect. Masculinity is about maturity.
Yeah.
Masculinity is about delivering on what you say.
Promises,
yeah. Right? Delivering on that. And so some people say, okay, these two can't coexist. Some people say they can. Some people say that it's in the middle. But to your point, I think largely, you know what in my opinion, what the problem is that when you say masculinity for so many people, they immediately enter the toxic conversation into the masculinity.
Yeah.
Which is ultimately disrespectful, which ultimately is hard, not soft.
Yeah.
Which is automatically tough, not fair. Which is automatically assertive, not kind.
But I think that the whole point of being virtuous, is like, say for example, if I was going to be strong, it's me being strong, but not have to use my strength. It's me being courageous. It's me having the ability to be strong and brave and capable. And, I could be dominant in a situation, but you don't have to be. It's just like, yours like it. And the virtue about it is just by, like you say, fairness, respect, and that side of it. So that's why I don't say that that's not essential. I think both of them merged into one are essential, because I think the whole point is, it's like, I would prefer like people not to fear me, but to respect me.
Yes.
I'd prefer to, if I was to make a decision, it would be a decision based on you actually wanting to agree with me and think that I was right. And that's why I say you have to earn that, because if you earn that competency, people around you begin to trust you.
Yes.
I don't want to be demonized, because I think there's a lot of great masculine men out there, and I don't think masculinity is a bad thing if it's handled the right way. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
No, and I'm with you. I'm with you. I think there's also, and this is maybe this is a whole part too, but I think also, you have a reckoning of what's happening in society around a man's place in society.
Yeah.
So, for example, what happens to men in heterosexual relationships when you have women out earning men? Where you have right now, under the age of 35 in the UK and the US, women are out earning men. Women have higher levels of education under the age of 35 than men. So if you have a man who's always been told you're going to provide, and now you can no longer provide, where's your place?
You are right what you're saying. It's a difficult question, but what do you believe? Like, do you change the definition of where someone's place has to be?
Yeah, right now, society. So even to connect this back to the whole Egypt conversation is that because in the East, that's happening at slower rates. In the West, it's accelerating.
Yeah.
So under the age of 35, men are still out educating women in the East, but in the West, it's not happening. So I think we have to redefine what roles are in a relationship here, or we have, or throw out the rules, because the rules from 50 years ago cannot work today.
And do you think subsequently as well? I was thinking about this a lot on my trip. It's actually defining what makes you happy.
Yes.
If no one else is looking, what would make you happy, in a sense? And the reason I say this is because, being out on this challenge, I had a lot of time to think, 8 to 12 hours a day, just in my own head, just woof, woof. And I thought it's really crazy, right? Because we live like in a society now, this like digital age, right? And we're always consuming information. So we watch podcasts. We listen to podcasts, of what other people say.
Yes.
We watch videos of what other people do.
Yes.
Read books on what other people have wrote to try and, self-master.
Yes.
Yeah. And we spend less time actually sitting, and realizing who we want to be and what we need to do to make ourselves happy. There's all of these definitions of who we should be and what we do around us. But like the only person that can decide, your happiness is yourself. Not for me, bro. Like, I know what makes me happy as a man. Yeah. What makes you happy as a man might be slightly different. But I live my life not based on what other people think or not based on what someone else is doing. I do it based on behind closed doors. If no one else is looking, what makes me feel good.
Running your own business? Listen in for a great offer from today's sponsor, Shopify. You know when you go on an amazing first date and you get that rush of excitement? It's the same thrill business owners get when they hear Shopify's iconic, another customer, another sale, another reminder that someone out there loves what you've got to offer. I've got plenty of products in the pipeline, but finding a platform to house them on has been a challenge until I found Shopify. It's the commerce platform where I can sell in multiple places like TikTok and Instagram. And it's all done through the same customizable online store. Shopify has the tools to take your business to the next level. And now you can try it for £1 per month while the period applies. Head to shopify.co.uk/need to talk and let me know how you get on. When it comes to love, we're all on our own journey. And that means any advice we're given should be tailored to our love goals, not someone else's. This is where my show and Tinder, who sponsor this podcast, have teamed up to help you. Each week on We Need to Talk, I'll explore love and relationships through a different lens so you can get the advice that relates to your romantic situation. Tinder is for all types of relationships, and I truly believe it has the best tools to help you form the connections you're looking for. That might be long-term commitment or short-term experiences. Maybe it's friendship. But regardless of which part of the journey you're on, Tinder and I are here to support you. Their app is full of possibilities, and it's designed to help you explore every kind of connection. It starts with a swipe, so download Tinder today. I've heard in many interviews you say that you're not happy. Today, Ashley, are you happy?
I don't believe there is such thing as happiness, for me anyway. I think happiness is a very strange word with a very strange definition, because I don't think there is something as total happiness. I think we have happy moments. I think we have happy memories. I think we have happy places. I don't think there's anything as I'm happy, because there's so many things on a day-to-day basis that are willing to change that or come up and sucker punch you in the face.
Yeah.
I guess what I am at the minute is content. The reason why I say content is because currently, I'm at a position where I've achieved something amazing for the cause I wanted to achieve it for. I've got my son, which I get to see and have 3 days a week, sometimes 4 days a week, which gives me incredibly happy moments. And I'm surrounded by a great family. I meet loads of great people. And I believe that I now in my life have a positive impact in this world. So, I'm kind of content, always want more. Am I totally happy? No, I can never be happy. How can I be happy? Because something's made me so sad, and that's never ever going to change. So my form of happiness comes from something different now. Like you say, it comes from someone said to me today, on the train, that same guy, he said, what do you see when you look in the mirror? And he was like, you need to ask a couple of people a day what they see. It's a fucking good question.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what I see? I say, when I get up in the morning, I look in the mirror, I see a person that, has somebody who wants to be and certain things he needs to achieve and a pathway to getting there. And I said, at the end of the day, I have a person that's either done that or hasn't. And that's how I see myself. And that's how I gauge, my level of contentment or my happiness based on that day.
You know what's interesting is I'm with you. I think many of us use words and terms and we don't even know what they mean. Happy. I think amazing is a word that is just like abused, but well-being is a great word. Well-being is a great word. Do you feel like you have strong well-being?
Yes.
Okay.
And do you know what it is? Because I turned off that switch of looking for happiness. People say to me, oh, you need to take a rest. You need to do something for you. They tell me all of these things. Be kind to yourself, all of this, yeah? Now, for me personally, you know, me doing that challenge that I've done was unbelievable. You know what? I made a really big promise, a really big commitment. And every single day, like, I had a feeling and a sensation of like achieving something I didn't think was possible.
Yes.
And doing it for the most divine and blessed cause that I know, you know, helping kids survive, yeah? Like, God, I had a feeling that completely like obliterates any night out,
Yes.
any holiday, any retail therapy, any spa day. I had my feet were ripped to shreds, I had tears, I had stress fractures, I was bleeding, I was throwing up, I was ill. And every single night I lay in the most peace that I have, you know, this whole year, because I knew I'd done what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
It's all well and good, reading, listening, watching, but it's even better to find out your own well-being.
It is. And to the point of well-being, I think so. There's a woman named Dr. Carol Riff, who is the OG of well-being. Yeah. And she describes it. She has a theory called the 6 dimensions of psychological well-being.
Yeah.
I believe you have them. What are those 6? What does it mean? So one is that you have personal growth. Personal growth is that you're actively developing new skills. You are always actively, you set these challenges, you're developing new skills, you're pushing yourself, right? That's one part of it. Another part of it is to have goals. You have incredibly lofty goals, you know what I mean? Another part of it is to have strong relationships with people that you love. You have that. Another is called autonomy. You have control over your time. You decided to come down to see me today. You know what I mean? So you have autonomy. A fifth is called environmental mastery. And that is that you feel like you are an asset to your community. You are an asset to your community. You know it in terms of how much money you fundraise, et cetera. And the last but not least is considered the most important by many. And that is that you have self-acceptance. Self-acceptance, in my opinion, is more powerful than self-love, because self-acceptance is saying, I know my demons and I'm okay with them.
What you just said there is absolutely amazing. I've worked tirelessly in the last 3 years to attain all of those things. And in the way that you said it and explained it, not only is it right, but it's very poetic, yeah? But what's the no frills way of that? It can come across as quite hard, but there is that in a less poetic, non-frills way, which I think is very important.
Yes.
We need to understand, we need to accept, and then we need to move forward. We can't sit in this area. We need to move into that area. And sometimes, you know, I always call it aggressive. I don't mean aggressive in like you want to fight people. Sometimes it's good to be like aggressive in your pursuit, finding that purpose and being aggressive in your pursuit to breaking out the other side, rather than wallowing in it and like, you know, blaming this or blaming that. I think sometimes like it's good to like action something going forward so you can feel confident, so you can feel competent, so you can have self-worth, so you can feel great. It's like you said, being an asset to a room.
Yes.
How do you become an asset to a room unless you're an asset?
Yes. Preach.
How do you...
I agree.
It's not about me walking into a room and being the best. It's about me knowing that I'm making gradual steps to making my situation better. That gives me the self-confidence to walk in the room to feel like I'm an asset. Because number one, I know that people can trust me because I keep to my word. And if you can build on the others, that's absolutely fantastic. But you can't walk into a room every time knowing that you're the bottom of the pond and you're not doing anything about it. I think it's having that instinct to be able to like better your situation every day. It might be eating really well,
right?
So you become healthier. It might be, you know, doing a little bit of fitness every day to become fitter, to look better, to become healthier. It might be upskilling, so you have more competence to be able to help or affect different situations. I just started really small and doing little things every single day to make me feel better. And that enabled me to walk into a room and become an asset. And I think that's a great thing to say. I don't think we should just sit back and just realize that life is really tough. Sometimes, don't let life, make you out to be the victim. Sometimes you got to attack life. And
Yeah. And what I love too is, this is going to stay with me, is you cannot be an asset to your community unless you are an asset. That was a strong line. Yeah, I like that, man, because you're right. And in order to become an asset is a value, something of value.
Yeah.
You have to create that value.
Yeah.
I want to talk about relationships.
Yeah.
So you were in a relationship. You've mentioned Sophia.
Yeah.
And you both created a princess.
Yeah.
Right. When you think back upon that relationship, what did you learn about how, as a partnership, to manage trauma or to manage grief?
I think, the main thing is understanding, first and foremost. If you're a partnership and you go through something like losing your child, you're the only people that really truly understand each other and how you feel, knowing that, having trust in that. I think the one good thing, with me and Saf was like, no matter what, we always knew that, guess what? Like, I know that person feels exactly the same as me. Because I think that can get rid of a lot of barriers that may be in place. I think, one thing that I always tried to make sure that I did is that I was there to listen. I was there to help. And also, like, I like to provide a layer of support. So my family was always, around for Sophia as well. It was just, I knew how much the layers of support were beneficial to me. So I wanted to have the layers of support for her as well. Because you know what, as well, what I was fully aware of, mate, is you're not always going to be have the best day.
Right.
You're not always going to have the best day. I knew that sometimes if I spoke to Saf, maybe something was really hurting that day. And if she was a certain kind of way with me, it wasn't because it was personal. It was because of how she felt. And I should know, because I could be the same. Do you know what I mean? So I think for me, I never expected a relationship to be perfect at that point. But what's more important than it being perfect is that you are present and you are there. There's so many difficulties with that, mate. And I think, with me as well, I kind of gained a really strong purpose. I wasn't okay. A lot of people look at me and they're like, oh, well, Ashley's strong, Ashley's this. Nah, mate, I feel, but I gained like a really strong purpose that gave me direction of where I was going forward.
Fair. When you look back upon your relationship, is there anything that you would have done differently?
No. I mean, you could say like there could be little things. I mean, I don't think any of us are perfect. There's probably certain little things in a relationship you think, oh, probably I should have been a bit different then, or maybe I should have gone about that in a different way. But as in me as a person, who I was, what I stood for, what I did, no.
You are very confident in who you are, right? You're very confident in who you are. If someone is listening and they are married to a you who's very confident, some people might say stubborn, right? What advice do you have for them? How do they manage a you?
One thing that I would always say to anybody that's with someone like me is you have to have your life as well. And we come together and make each other's lives better. Like, say for me, Paul, like, I think whoever I'd be with, I want them to do great. If they had to go and work away, I'm like, how long you got to go for? 4 weeks. Smash it for 4 weeks. I wouldn't be, where are you going? Who's going to be there? My instance is, I think sometimes, and you might disagree, being, especially in relationships, right? I've always said to anyone that I'm with, do not be dependent on me. Understand and know I will always be there for you. I will always look after you. Do not be dependent on me. Build your own life, build your own self-confidence, So when it comes to the time when you're not happy, you can walk out the door. But if you want to stay, there's always a place for you. That's what I would always say to somebody. I want to be in a relationship, where we're with each other because we love to be with each other. We're with each other because we make each other's lives better. And I think that's why it's important why you have your shit going on, I have my shit going on. And when we come together, we have a whole heap of shit going on.
So does that mean that Ashley Cain is single?
Maybe.
Okay.
And do you know what he's put? I don't do stress, mate.
Okay.
I'm a simple man. Simple man. You know, for me, I think I believe my love language is acts of service,
Okay.
I've been told that many times. Because I don't like people, I don't want people to buy me anything. I don't want anyone to do something big, It's just little acts of service for each other and don't cause unnecessary problems.
Right.
I don't do stress.
Because you're single. I have to do this. Because this is my zone right here. This is my zone, right? One, how you described a relationship, I love that. That's called an interdependent relationship.
Yeah.
So that's lovely. I love that. It's so hard right now for people to connect, to find a partner. It sounds like that you're open to finding a partner. Are you dating right now?
Yeah.
Can we talk about this?
I'm out and about now and again. I mean, I'm very busy, so it has to fit in with my schedule, all my travels or wherever I am. But I mean, my priority is not dating, but that doesn't mean I don't date.
Okay, so you're open to it.
I would never look for anything. What I do is I make sure that my life is in order, right? Because then when I find somebody, or if I find somebody, they will only come into my life because they're an asset to it, not because I need them.
Okay.
I think searching for a relationship in desperation of searching can make you accept things that are below par of what you deserve or somebody that isn't good for you. Whereas my life is that powerful that you're only getting in these doors if you make it better rather than worse. So I know what I deserve,
So let's talk about how you get in the doors. Okay. That's how you talk about how you get in the doors. Now, this will be interesting. I don't know how you're going to answer this. Is that you can? I mean, you are a traditional. You feel like you're a traditional guy, right? Would you be open to a woman approaching you?
Yeah.
Okay. How would you like to? Well, because you know what? Most women, not even some, most women believe that men don't want a woman to approach them. That men are not interested in having women approach them. And I always say,
well, they believe that.
They believe that. And I say,
women believe that.
Yeah.
And I think they're coughing out.
You think so?
100%.
All right. So you would love to have a woman approach you.
It's not I would love. Like, I mean, me being the kind of person, if I seen somebody that I was attracted to and I had a good vibe, I would just try and go up to them like a normal person. You're like me, like I always go for the approach of like, if you're seeing someone in the supermarket, it's just like, how would you talk to anybody? I just talk to everybody the same, like in terms of approaching.
But how would you like them to approach you? So let's say you're at the coffee shop. No, you wouldn't be at the coffee shop. You're at the protein shop.
Yeah.
You get your protein shake on.
Yeah.
And someone sees you. What would you like them to say to you?
I think, do you know what I think? I think obviously you got to be very careful at looking at somebody, but I always try and look, So like if I see you sitting today, I see you got strong, like, so then I make a comment on that. Or I'd see something I like about your shoes. I'd just find like something that I can relate to, that I have something to say about, and then just go and be confident and say it. Don't make it weird. Don't make it too much. You can make an observation about, the fact that I look like I train, or you could make an observation that you like my smile, or that I'm drinking a protein shake, or just say, how are ya? What you're doing today, anything. Because I think in this dating world and when we come to speaking to people, it's like if you seen somebody that you weren't attracted to, you would have no problem speaking to them because you haven't got that sense, that heightened sense within you. As soon as you see someone attractive, you think, I don't know what to say wrong, I don't know what to say right, I'm unsure of what to do. So I just think like, just make it normal. If you want to come up and just laugh or make me smile or whatever. I'm not too picky. I'm a simple person, Paul. I'm so simple.
All right. So here's where it gets technical. Let's say they approach you.
Yeah.
And they talk about, hey, it looks like you train. Would it be too much of an ask if then they then ask you out?
No. Because I think we all have a choice. I think, I think, within the first couple of seconds with interacting with somebody, you know if they're a potential suitor or not. You might not know whether they're the potential love of your life or whether they're gonna make your life great or wreck your life, but you know instantly with the connection whether you could like pursue this to another date or maybe 2 more days. I think you know. So I think we shouldn't be too prude. Like I'm just not too prude. I flirt with the checkout, the old checkout lady named June who's about 70. I try and make her feel good. So if somebody came up to me and we just normal tried to make me feel good and asked me, to go on a date, I wouldn't think too much about it. But I think, how we are and how we perceive certain situations today can scare a lot of people off. And I think that's, like the old thing now when like people filming in gyms, you always see girls filming in gyms and the guy looks and then it's like they're being this. I think we just need to take all of this kind of stuff out a little bit and just get used to like meeting people in public, being chatty, being quite nice, have a little flirt and see how it goes.
Yeah.
I haven't got no standards with that. If you come up to me and say hello and I'm attracted to you and I'll get on with you in the first couple of minutes of us talking, why would we not go on another date?
So, is Ashley right? Should women approach men? Absolutely. I always say this, absolutely. Here's why. Research has shown that 90% of men would be happy if a woman made the first move. And here's something interesting. Women are catching on. According to one study, over 70% of women today say they're open to approaching men first. Now, that's a big shift from a decade ago, where traditional norms still dominated the dating scene. This change reflects cultural shifts towards gender equality and a more balanced relationship. Now, research from my good friend Dr. Terry Orbuck shows that couples who feel equal in decision-making tend to be more successful and satisfied. So, when a woman takes the initiative, it can actually set the stage for a healthier, more balanced relationship from the start. So ladies, please don't hesitate to make the first move. It's not just about breaking the ice. It's about building the foundation for a stronger and equal partnership. Now, at the start of this conversation, I asked Ashley how he was doing. He said he always has an overarching feeling of pain, trauma, and sadness. After our conversation, I was curious to see if he felt any better. So I asked him again how he was doing.
I feel good right now. After our conversation, I think it was a very nice environment. I think we talked about some really amazing and powerful topics. And, as I sit opposite you, I'm glad I've met you and I like you as a person. So right now I feel good. I feel a lot better now than when I first walked in here today.
All right, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good. It's an honor. This has been an honor to have this conversation with you. It really has. All right, next is you think back to all of the incredible conversations you've had throughout your life. What was the most memorable? Who was it with? What was the conversation?
It was probably a conversation that I had with my mom recently because I really didn't expect it. And, because usually I would ring my mom just for somebody to mollycoddle me and just tell me everything's going to be all right. And my mom came with a level of motivation and a level of no nonsense that I'd never seen or heard from anybody before, which made me not only understand that I could, but truly, truly deep-rootedly believe in it because she told me that. And then it gave me a really strange reflection that I always thought that my mom was the loving and caring one and my dad gave my strength, but then me not realizing that my mom is probably the strongest person that I know because she never faltered. She may not be an in-your-face strong person, and it taught me that I didn't have to be a certain person to be strong. My level of compassion can be my strength. My level of love can be my strength. My level of loyalty can be my strength. And strength doesn't always need to be heard or seen. Sometimes it can just sit quiet and be felt, and my mom gave me that. And it was an incredible conversation. Like I said, I was in a weak moment. And I reflected back on all that my mom's been through and I reflected back on the person that she was during those times. And I thought, that's a kind of strength that's admirable and a kind of strength that I should adopt. You know, it was great.
Yeah. That was so powerful. You know, I find what's so interesting about our conversation is that we ended exactly where we began.
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for
I
having me.
appreciate it, man.
Really enjoyed it.
Yeah, man.
I think I've learned a lot, man. From on the back foot a bit, I was like, I don't know.
Just like last time, I want to give you my top 5 key takeaways and advice from this conversation. It's my hope that each time I sit down and talk with a guest, you learn something that you can take away to help your own relationships. Number 1 takeaway: being honest with yourself and others is crucial for overcoming trauma rather than avoiding it. According to a study published in JAMA Psychiatry, individuals who confront and openly discuss their traumatic experiences show a 30% greater improvement in mental health outcomes compared to those who avoid addressing trauma. This approach helps in processing emotions, reducing symptoms of PTSD, and improving overall well-being. Number 2, evolving definitions of masculinity significantly impact men's mental health and well-being. Research by the American Psychological Association indicates that traditional masculine norms, such as emotional suppression and self-reliance, are linked to higher rates of mental health issues in men. Men who conform to these norms are 1.5 times more likely to experience depression and anxiety compared to those who embrace more flexible and expressive forms of masculinity. Number 3, setting personal goals, developing new skills, and cultivating strong relationships are essential for psychological well-being. Individuals who set specific, measurable goals and engage in continuous skill development report a 20% higher level of life satisfaction. Additionally, strong social connections are linked to a 50% increased likelihood of improved mental health. Number 4, being an asset to one's community and making gradual improvements to oneself are key to personal growth and well-being. Individuals who actively report on balancing the two report a higher level of relationship satisfaction and an increase in personal self-confidence. Effective communication and self-care practices are vital components in achieving this balance. I want to thank you for listening to this conversation with Ashley today. Much love and respect.